Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. First, some final pretrial motions in the Alec Balwin case. The jury selection begins tomorrow. We'll bring it to you live. Karen Reed's attorneys say they are entitled to a not guilty verdict. I'll explain. Two stories that make you just pause and think, is this a sign of the times? What would you do if your Uber driver was arrested while you were in the back seat? And then our dumb criminal of the day, who I kind of feel sorry for, and, well, he kind of did everything correctly. Let's talk about it.
Hi, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, and hit that little bell for notifications so that you receive word of when we go live or put up new content. And yes, you can always listen to us anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, I hope you all had a great Independence Day, 4th of July holiday celebration. I personally had a wonderful time. The lovely Miss Kristen and I went to Chicago, stayed in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, which was absolutely lovely. We're able to go to a Cubs game, and yes, the Cubbies won. Now, this is not the first time that I've been to Chicago. Been there many, many times. But this time, at least I could say, is I made it out safely. There were over 100 shootings in the city of Chicago this past weekend, and only 18 dead. Whew. Kind of a low number, even for a long weekend. I guess things are getting better there in Chicago. But I was watching the local news because I'm always interested in what takes place when you go to new cities. And there was a police chief literally out there having a press conference in a neighborhood, basically telling the people that lived in the neighborhood where these shootings and killings were taking place is that, hey, you need to help us police what's going on here. You know, there used to be a certain standard that you didn't harm women, you didn't harm children. And the reason that this police chief was talking about this, there was an incident there where somebody broke into a home and killed an adult and shot two young children. And the cop was just like saying, I've had enough. But ladies and gentlemen, you know who it is. He was telling the people watching and listening to his press conference, help us find these people. There used to be standards. There used to be a certain code that took place. And all hell has broken loose, not only there in the city of Chicago, but just about everywhere else here in the United States. So let's get to the docket. So let's open the record for July 8th, 2024. And first on the docket, Alec Balwin. Well, the judge agreed with the defense attorneys today. The judge decided Monday that actor Alec Baldwin's role as co-producer isn't relevant to the involuntary manslaughter trial over the fatal shooting of the director on the Western film Rust. The judge said in her order, I'm having real difficulty with the state's position that they want to show that a producer, he didn't follow guidelines, and therefore as an actor, he should somehow be responsible. Mr. Baldwin did all of those things wrong that resulted in the death of Miss Hutchinson's because as a producer, he allowed these things to happen. The judge noted. She said, I'm denying evidence of his status as the producer from coming in at his trial. Well, the special prosecutor had argued unsuccessfully, obviously, to allow the evidence that Baldwin's role as a producer made him keenly aware of his responsibilities on the set for safety. Now, this goes back to this whole negligence, criminal negligence. I don't think negligence should be in a criminal courtroom. We've talked about this in the past, when the parents and the gun up in Michigan and, reasonably foreseeable. That's what the negligence standard is. It's something reasonably foreseeable. You should be that you can be negligent and you can be held responsible for that. That is a civil standard. You go sue people when they are negligent. You don't criminally prosecute them for that. All right? We've made this argument before. I think it's finally starting to get some traction. The Supreme Court has even said, hey, you're starting to get some traction on this. You charge people in criminal court for their intentional and their reckless conduct, ladies and gentlemen. Negligence could get very, very tricky for everyone involved. including you. Someone says, hey, you should have known what was going to happen. You should have known your kid was going to take the car. You should have known that somebody was going to break into your house and accidentally harm themselves in your property. I'm telling you, it gets crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, the trial starts for Alec Balwin July 9th. It's going to be jury selection, and the trial is scheduled to last 10 days. We will bring gavel-to-gavel coverage to you here on Crime Talk. So last week, the judge cleared the way for the firearms expert for the prosecution to testify about Baldwin's handling of the revolver and whether the gun was functional prior to the shooting. Now, prosecutors had previously argued that a state workplace safety investigation, which found serious violations on the set, was incomplete, untrustworthy, and should be prohibited from the trial. Now, for those who don't know, Baldwin is charged with a single felony count of involuntary manslaughter, and it carries up to 18 months in prison if he is convicted. Now, remember the armorer who is responsible for the safe handling of weapons as well, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Well, she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter as it relates to the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins, and she was sentenced to 18 months in prison. She's obviously appealing that conviction. The prosecutor wanted her to testify, but her appeal is ongoing. She still has Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, so we don't expect to see her at the trial. And it also seems very unlikely that the prosecutor will attempt to force Ms. Gutierrez-Reed to testify via the potential immunity agreement, and frankly, I don't think the judge would force her to testify to do so. Anyway, Mr. Baldwin has pled not guilty and claims the gun fired accidentally after he followed instructions to point the gun toward Miss Hutchins, who was behind the camera. He claims that he was unaware the gun contained a live round, and Baldwin said that he pulled the hammer back, not the trigger, and it fired. Now, you can go back and look at our previous videos. I just happen to have a very similar firearm of that era where it's very unlikely that that hammer would go forward without him pulling the trigger. But maybe we'll bring that in for the trial this week. Now, prosecutors also want to exclude from trial the conclusions of the safety investigation into the fatal shooting that places much of the blame on the assistant director, Dave Halls. Halls has pled no contest to negligent use of a firearm, and he may be called to testify at Baldwin's trial. Now, the Rust Movie Production Company paid a $100,000 fine to resolve violations of the state safety regulations that were characterized as serious but not willful under a 2023 settlement agreement. Prosecutors say conclusions of the investigation are easily contradicted by more reliable information. Now, Mr. Baldwin's attorneys say the report can't be ruled out as something of evidentiary value, and that the state occupational safety officer, Lorenzo Montoya, should be allowed to testify at trial. Another pretrial motion and order could stop some sniping between the prosecutor and the defense team. The prosecutors want the judge to preclude accusations of prosecutorial misconduct and personal attacks from coming before the jury. It should. That's the professional thing to do. It's not evidence. Anyway, prosecutors also want the judge to exclude evidence and arguments designed to garner sympathy for Baldwin, including indications of remorse or the impact of events on his family, arguing that it has no bearing on determining whether he is guilty of the charge or not. A certain amount of that information will come in. If Mr. Baldwin testifies, a little bit more may come in. Not all of it would be particularly relevant, how it has affected his family. Don't care, not an element of the offense, that's it. The only thing that's relevant is what took place on that movie set, on the date and place charged, that's it. Don't really care how it affected your family. That's for sentencing. Save it for that particular time. Anyway, the trial will begin tomorrow. Jury selection begins. We will bring it to you, gavel to gavel coverage. Please come join us. It's going to be on all of the channels that we have on the Crime Talk network. That would include YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, and Roku. So please join us. Next on the docket, Karen Reed is demanding a not guilty verdict. If only they had asked. Yeah, I'll explain. So Karen Reed's lawyers have filed a motion, and they claim that 3 jurors came forward to say that the jury had an agreement to acquit her of killing her Boston cop boyfriend before the judge ultimately declared a mistrial. Now, in this new motion, the attorneys for Miss Reed asked the judge to dismiss charges of second-degree murder and leaving the scene of a fatal crash. Now, Reed's defense team stated that it received unsolicited communications from the jurors following her week-long trial in Massachusetts, which ended in a hung jury. Another jury reportedly told the defense team that there was no consideration for murder two and that Reed should have been acquitted, according to the motion. Now, the assertion directly contradicts the jury foreman's note to the judge during the 5-day deliberations. The foreman communicated that the jurors were hopelessly deadlocked as a result of a deeply held belief. Now, the foreman said on July 1st, the deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral codes, and asked that the judge not force jurors to attempt to compromise their beliefs about the case. As a result, the judge declared a mistrial. Well, the district attorney's office immediately declared that they would be planning to have a retrial of the case. And then the DA's office said that now it's reviewing the motion and plans to file a response. And they said, once again, we're looking forward to picking a new trial date when we have that status conference on July 22nd. Now, the filing by Ms. Reed's attorneys argues the double jeopardy clause in the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, which prohibits anyone from being prosecuted twice for substantially the same crime, and they're asking for the charges to be dropped. Now, she also faces charges of manslaughter while operating a motor vehicle and driving under the influence of alcohol. Okay, this is a great publicity stunt, but the judge blew it, the prosecutors blew it, and the defense blew it as well. Now, everything from the notes from the jury foreperson indicated that the jury was deadlocked. There was no indication as to whether it was truly a 6-6 split, 11-1, what the issue was. It really doesn't matter. But remember, every time the judge received a note, the defense said, mistrial, mistrial, mistrial. Not once did either the prosecution or the defense or even the judge suggest, even after giving the modified Allen instruction, which was the one saying, go back, reconsider your positions, but don't give in if you're truly convinced that somebody is right or wrong. Not a single person said, have you been able to decide on any of the charges? If so, we'll take a verdict on the charges that you've reached a unanimous verdict from. So the fact that somebody from the jury pool has now come forward and says, hey, we had an agreement. Nobody was going to find her guilty of all that other stuff. It was all the other stuff that we were arguing about. Well, guess what? You jurors, you screwed it up. I don't know what happened. I don't know what they were thinking, but they made it sound like they were split and they were never going to be able to make a decision. The prosecutors didn't ask. The defense attorneys didn't ask, and the judge didn't suggest it either, to say, hey, if you've reached a verdict on a count, we'll take a verdict on that particular count. And then on the counts that you're hung and you're unable to reach a decision on, we will declare a mistrial for those counts. This is not a double jeopardy argument. This is a good publicity stunt, but it has no rational basis in law that I am aware of. But if somebody says, hey, Scott, there's a case in Massachusetts right on point that if the jury comes forward and says, we forgot to fill out the form correctly or notify the judge that we were going to find her not guilty of it, please let me know. I don't think that's the case. This is a dead bang loser, but hopefully the prosecution and the defense has talked to more than just 3 jurors to get a better understanding of where this jury came out on the issues. And in fact, truly they would have found her not guilty on all these counts. Then the prosecutor needs to make a particular decision as to whether they're going to go forward or not, or make some sort of plea bargain that the defense can live with. Now, on another note, last week we talked about the photo the photo. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, people are like, Scott, I'm unsubscribing from you. How can you put up that photo? Well, guess what? There was even yet another news organization that said that they had corroborated the photo. The only thing I could find was some guy was like, well, we can't be sure, and it looks like maybe the watch isn't the same, okay? But people that were supposedly with Karen Reed that night said the photo was real, and don't take it too seriously. They were just joking around, just joshing around. So for all the people out there that say, oh, Scott, what are you doing? Hey, you know what? You decide for yourself. We're bringing it to you. You can believe what you want. But the last time I saw a group of people this fired up for a particular side in a case was the Johnny Depp case. And Miss Heard, horrible human being. But I also noted that, Mr. Depp was not a great individual either. Not all of that stuff was completely made up. But man, people are all fired up about it. And it's like when there's people that are there that's saying that that's the picture that took place. And I mean, has Karen Reed come out and say, that's not me? No. Have the attorneys come out and said, no, that's not me? It's been on all kinds of major news networks. And also, I would note, on TMZ. And if you can't trust TMZ, who can you trust, ladies and gentlemen? Now, I say that with a little bit of jest, but a lot of times those tabloids, they get all the good scoops because they're willing to pay dollars, ladies and gentlemen, and they're saying the story was true. So you decide. I'm just bringing it to you. I take no position. It is what it is. It looks like him. All I can say in my 30 years of practicing law, I don't think I've ever embraced a defendant that way, if that is in fact the photograph that they purport it to be. Next, take a look at this video. This is completely unbelievable. Is this just a sign of the times? At least anywhere between 80 to 100 people broke into a gas station last week after attending a nearby car show. And apparently all these people then ripped shelves apart and stole everything from the store, including the cash that was in the cash register, estimated to be some $25,000, also including what was in the safe. Now, the police report says that the thieves were allegedly upset because the 24/7 store was only offering window service during the overnight hours, probably because they were afraid they were going to get looted and robbed. Anyway, the entire incident was caught on video, like it oftentimes is, and criminals were seen taking items from the refrigerators, grabbing things from behind the counter, and taking items from the shelves. The police... the store owner claims that the police took 9 hours until they responded to a call for help. Now, the guy who owns the store is a guy by the name of Sam Madej, and he is a Yemeni immigrant whose store was left with approximately $100,000 worth of damage. And he said that this lawlessness is worse than what he saw in a third world country, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. Maybe we should hold all of the parents responsible for the young youths of America who broke into this store. It's a negligence standard, right? Reasonably foreseeable. Your kid could break into a store and do something. Parents should be responsible for that. Sometimes you have to demonstrate absurdity with absurdity, ladies and gentlemen. You see the problem with the negligence standard? It just never ends. It just never ends. They can come get you. They can come get all of us. Next, another story, the whole, is this our new reality? Police in New York are looking for a killer. And this was a little bold what this person did. So like I said, the police in New York are looking for a killer that they believe is obviously on the loose after a resident stumbled, yes, literally stumbled across a woman, and her body was wrapped in a garbage bag on a busy sidewalk. I guess they just couldn't make it to the dumpster, I guess. Anyway, NYPD officers responded to the report of a suspicious package amid trash in front of the 27th Street and 3rd Avenue in Kips Bay on the east side of Manhattan just before 5 p.m. on Friday. The EMS personnel responded and pronounced the individual in the bag as dead. Now, the chief medical examiner noted that they discovered the 31-year-old female who suffered a gunshot wound to the head, and it was deemed a homicide. Shocking. Anyway, there are no arrests, and the investigation is ongoing. The woman was identified by her mother as Yasmin Williams. The passerby, who was unlucky enough to make the discovery, said that she was suspicious of the package because flies were circling around it. Anyway, horrified onlookers inside the lobby of a nearby building also took video of the detectives cutting into the body bag on the street to find out who, in fact, was in there and what was going on. Now we're just dumping bodies on the street, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable. Next, what would you do if your Uber driver got arrested? Well, an Uber driver was caught in some airport trouble with a passenger in the back seat. According to the Miami-Dade police, the Uber driver was blocking traffic while dropping off a passenger in an unauthorized location at the Miami International Airport. Sometimes that happens, right? Anyway, the passenger in the Uber captured part of the exchange between the motorist and the officer who stopped him in a cell phone video that was posted on social media. The driver says, "One moment, sir, get out of the car," said the officer. "Listen to me very carefully. If you resist, you're going to make..." "I'm not resisting," the driver said. "I'm literally have my registration on my hand," said the driver. "Give me the registration and give me the god darn proof of insurance and stop playing games with me," said the officer. "Give it to me. I don't want to talk to you anymore." "It's on that screenshot," said the driver, and he showed it to the officer. "You have to have a physical proof of insurance," which is actually not true in Florida. Anyway, the officer said, the driver then said, I didn't realize that. "I know that you didn't know that. There's a lot of things you don't know," said the officer. Anyway, investigators said the driver was not obeying the officer's commands and was therefore detained, but not arrested. Now, like I said, contrary to what the officer is heard saying in the video, you can have electronic insurance in the state of Florida. Now, this just shows, ladies and gentlemen, how quickly things can escalate. Let me tell you about my trip to Chicago. We get off the plane Thursday night. Everything's going great. I'm waiting for my Uber to pick us up, and we're in the Uber section. And there is a gentleman that drives up to pick up his family that are waiting there in the Uber section. Anyway, he stops kind of in the lane of traffic. The lady, the police officer or whatever role that she had there, all of a sudden tells the guy, "You need to move your car over here to stay out of the lane of traffic." I thought that was a reasonable request. All of a sudden, the guy walks straight up to the police officer, a female, very short compared to the other gentleman, and says, "I want your supervisor. You can't make me do this," and just goes off. Unbelievable. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the lovely Miss Kristen, and I'm thinking, let it go. That's what I even say it after her. Just let it go. Anyway, the guy finally pulls over. He then demands her badge number, all that kind of stuff. She takes a picture. They take a picture. They're yelling back and forth at each other. The man that was picking up his family, the family was absolutely mortified what was taking place. They're like, "Dad, let's just go." Anyway, they ultimately left. But I think the officer actually showed great restraint. She did raise her voice because the other gentleman raised his voice and frankly got a little too close to her, that I thought a little too close for comfort. I was just kind of watching, and I didn't take out the video. I should have taken the video out, and that would have probably gone viral, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be that guy. But it just shows you these type of situations, people get stressed. They're busy situations. Man, just let it go. Just let it go. Uber driver, drop the people off in the right place. Guy in Chicago, just do what the officer tells you to do. It's get out of the traffic. It's safer for the small children that you are picking up, for God's sakes. Anyway, people, they just let it go. All right, today, finally, our dumb criminal of the day. He's not really that dumb because he kind of did it right, but I also feel sorry for him. Anyway, a man walked into a bank and gave the bank teller a note demanding cash. Police came to the bank where they arrested the unarmed suspect for robbery. How much money did he ask for? 1 cent, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Fleming walked into the bank, filled out the withdrawal slip, and handed it to the teller. The defendant was told he could not be given the 1 cent. And after being denied the penny, Mr. Fleming, who does not have a Chase account, reportedly told the teller, "So you want me to say the other word?" The teller was in fear that possible violence was imminent and notified law enforcement. When the police responded to the call, Mr. Fleming was still inside the bank. He was taken into custody and transported to the local jail where he was interviewed by police. Mr. Fleming said that he initially went to the Citizens First Bank, which was closed, before driving to the nearby Chase branch. After confirming that the bank employee's account of the episode, he said most of the time, the way tellers are trained, if someone comes to you to rob you, you give them the money and you let them go. So he was a little surprised that she refused the money. Anyway, Mr. Fleming claimed that he was expecting the teller to give him the 1 penny, adding that he would then sit in the chair and wait for law enforcement. His goal was to be arrested. The plan worked, obviously, because he was, in fact, arrested. And he was arrested for felony robbery for the 1 penny. He's locked up in lieu of a $5,000 bond. Now, it's unclear why Mr. Fleming, who does not appear to have a criminal record, wanted to be busted. But until recently, Mr. Fleming rented a mobile home at a Central Florida community about 10 miles away from the bank. He had recently been evicted from the residence back in May for failure to pay his rent. So I think Mr. Fleming did what a lot of us really think about doing. If you're just tired of it, you've had enough, you need maybe some medical attention. Who knows what Mr. Fleming had going on? Maybe just a little rest and relaxation. Go to the bank, rob the bank, don't threaten anybody, don't use a firearm. You're going to go to federal prison, and you're going to get the medical attention you need. The 3 hots in a cot, I guess. I kind of feel sorry for him just a little bit, but you can't go around taking other people's things. Probably, if they prosecute him in the state, he'll get probation. The feds, maybe they won't prosecute him at all. 1 penny, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, Mr. Fleming, you are a dumb criminal of the day. If you're going to go to prison, ask for more than a penny. You should have asked for $1 million. That's right, $1 million. All right, that's all we have for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk. And remember, yes, that Constitution, it matters.